It's all over, everyone. The machines have won. AI is finally here, and despite the best effort from SAG-AFTRA, there's nothing that we can actually do to stop it. And yeah, it is really ridiculous, or at least in my opinion, it seems kind of ridiculous because a lot of the stuff that people are afraid of that they're calling AI is basically old technology that it's had for some time now. The only difference is now there's probably a bit more of a polish to it. What brought this to my attention was this story I saw from Variety. Edith Piaf AI generated biopic in the works at Warner Music. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is because of what they're actually doing with this biopic on her. La Vie en Robots. More than 60 years after her death, legendary French singer Edith Piaf will come to life in the new biopic that will use AI to recreate her voice and image. All right, that's kind of an interesting approach to how they're going to go about doing this. Warner Music Group announced that it has partnered with Piaf's estate for Edith, set to be 90-minute film set in Paris and New York from the 1920s to the 60s. Piaf, known as the Sparrow of Paris, died October 10th, 1963. The film will be narrated by an AI-generated facemail of Piaf's voice and promises to uncover aspects of her life that were previously unknown. And that is one of the biggest hangups that people have in regards to this, is the fact that they're using AI in order to actually recreate her voice and basically bring her alive. But we've had stuff like this in the past in many movies and other events. I mean, there's that famous Tupac hologram at Coachella. In 2004, you had digital technology recreating Laurence Olivier's likeness, so he was developing in Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow. But people are probably looking at this and saying, like, well, that's just simple CGI. That's not actually AI. I mean, that's not a new thing. And it's like, well, but AI really isn't a new thing either. I mean, at least simple AI. I mean, look at this content aware fill tool in Photoshop. I mean, what you can do with that. And for people who don't know, as a brief rundown, it basically just samples the pixels around the selected subject in order to try to fill in the gap best way that it thinks the computer would imagine it. And that's the result, is you can actually delete certain things from the subject. I mean, it's not perfect, but in certain settings, it actually works fairly well, like this one, for instance. But a lot of the contention with AI technology is just the fact that digital technology has improved to the point where actors can be replaced entirely. And that's not AI technology. That's just simple CG artist work at hand here. And right now it is still too cost prohibitive to actually do that. But the SAG-AFTRA union understood that the technology is emerging and they need to kind of figure out how they're going to address it. So that's why they started striking right now, because they're worried that something can actually happen soon and they want to kind of get ahead of it. For many in the industry, artificial intelligence was the strike's most contentious, fear-inducing components. Over the weekend, SAG released details on its agreed AI terms, an expansive set of protections that require consent and compensation for all actors, regardless of status. Remember that, because consent and compensation was one of the biggest sticking points to the SAG-AFTRA strikes. With this agreement, SAG has gone substantially further than Directors Guild of America or the Writers Guild of America, who preceded the group in coming to terms with the AMPTP. Right now, it's still too cost prohibitive to actually just replace actors entirely in a production. But even then, SAG-AFTRA thought it was something worth addressing, and that's why they had to deal with it in their contracts, that if they are going to have a digital representation of them in a production, then they have to give their permission for it. They have to be compensated for it. And when it comes to this Edith Piaf biopic, that's exactly what happened. How it even says here that they had permission from her estate on doing this. So, I mean, people complaining about this one, I really don't understand where they're getting at, because this actually would kind of coincide with what SAG-AFTRA was actually trying to negotiate for this. And I think a lot of the people who are complaining about stuff like this just either have a fear of technology in general, like they hear the term AI and they think the worst things imaginable, even though this is basically just old technology that we've had for some time, or they just don't like the use of digital technology. But if a person is okay with digital technology in general, but just doesn't like the use of AI, then I just have to ask, like, what lines of computer code are okay to use and what lines of computer code are not allowed anymore?